The Mozambican didn't need a proud, arrogant white man,
Right.
who never gets sick, who never suffers.
Right.
What they needed was somebody who could identify with them. And I said, okay, Lord, that's beautiful. That's fine.
Guys, it's Thursday. We're back. Another new episode, and I got a banger for you today. Truly, do not skip this one. This is with Peter Wilcox, an incredible friend of mine, missionary on the field, lifelong missionary. His story is mind-boggling, and I know that you guys love getting our missionaries on there. I look up so much to this man, and I know that you guys are going to as well. A couple quick things, and I'm going to make this fast. We are about to start our online mission school training again. It's super cheap. It's amazing. If this podcast has been blessing you and you want to get some of that heart and DNA from the people that we're having on here, that is a one-way ticket to finding out a little bit more about Iris and catching that heart and that DNA for missions. The link is down below, and I think there's even a discount code. It's like 40 something bucks. I don't even know. It's cheap and it's amazing. You're going to love it. The last thing I want to say is this. We have been having some amazing guests on here, and I know that there's people out there that you want to see on here. So do me a favor. In the description, in the comments, let me know if there's somebody that you want to have on as a guest, someone that you would want me to have on. And especially if you're connected and you know them, put your info in the comments section. We're going to do whatever we can to reach out. Even better if they're in the local Tennessee area. I want to meet new people, and I want to interview amazing people that you guys want to see. So leave it in the comments below and enjoy this amazing time with Peter Wilcox. Peter Wilcox.
Yes, that's my name.
How are you, sir?
I'm very well.
Yeah.
And how are you?
I'm doing great. We got a lot going on right now.
Great expectations.
But you have a lot going on in your life.
I do. I really do.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. As people are tuning in right now, they're seeing me, which they see all the time, but they're seeing a new face. I think for most people, this is a new face. Actually, no.
No.
You and I and your wife filmed.
We did a couple of years ago.
And it was incredible. Yeah. I think we got a ton of views on that. Because we asked the question, or I asked the question, is it okay to defend yourself as a missionary?
That's right. Yeah.
And you answered it in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Well, there were a couple of occasions that we had to make decisions as to whether we should defend ourselves or not.
Yeah.
And that was amazing.
Yeah.
I think everybody has to defend themselves or face their situations in the way that I think God leads them or prepares them to do that.
Yeah.
All I know is that in South Africa, when Annelies and Antoinette and I were attacked.
Those are your daughters.
Yes. Yep. I could only just speak in tongues.
Yeah.
That's all I did. And in the end of it, the robbers just fled.
Yeah. It's amazing. I walked away from that conversation with you looking at it as like faith in the moment. And
Yes.
and I think I mean the thought had passed my mind, but I never heard somebody say it so eloquently, right? That in those moments you had faith.
But there was another situation where I went to get the katana.
Yes, and you mentioned that. And your wife, I loved you and your wife sitting there because your wife's like, "Shh, don't say that." You know, she was like trying to protect you guys.
And she said, Peter, she warned me. She said, Peter, is that really what you want to do?
Yeah.
So I put it away, and I went outside then, and there's nobody around. So I got in the car because there's no lights, there's no security, nothing.
Right.
It's just pitch black. And so I got in the car and turned on the lights and drove around to just shine the light around to see where the guys were.
Yeah.
But they'd gone.
Man. Okay. For everybody that hasn't seen the first episode I did with Peter and Debbie, your wife, Wilcox, these guys have been with Iris for years. You're a lifelong missionary.
Yes.
Can I ask how old you are to give people?
I'm 67.
You went to the 50s first.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. 67? And you've been doing ministry your whole life.
Well,
for the most part.
I've been on the mission field since I was born.
Yeah. And so why should people not fast forward or skip this podcast?
I suppose I have no idea.
I'm going to tell them why, because at Iris, we're a missions organization. You guys know this, but some of the most requested videos we get are of our team on the ground. Mm-hmm. And if I can think of anyone on our team who I would want to get some time with, there's a handful of people, mm-hmm. and you and your wife are at the top of the list.
Wow.
Because of who you are, what you've done. Mm-hmm. I've known you for, how long has it been?
Yeah, since 2005. 2006, yeah.
Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And I got to meet you when you moved out to Mozambique. Mm-hmm. Were you in Mozambique before?
2005 was when we first stepped into Mozambique. We'd never been in Mozambique or Africa in all our lives.
And you brought your whole family?
Brought our whole family. When God called us, we sold everything, left everything, and came to Africa.
If I remember correctly, maybe we're getting too ahead of ourselves, but you were missionaries before that.
Yes.
In Spain?
In Spain.
In Spain. Mm-hmm. Originally from Australia.
Yes.
And your wife is originally from?
Brisbane, Australia.
Brisbane, Australia. Okay. Mm-hmm. For some reason I thought you guys were, that makes sense. Yeah. Both from Australia, but been in missions your whole life.
Yes.
For the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And you come from a missions family.
Yes.
So
yes, my grandparents were missionaries in India, in the mm-hmm. north of India.
Yeah.
My parents were missionaries in Bolivia. And yeah, we've been missionaries too, and our kids are missionaries.
I love it. Okay, so I'm going to pick your brain on a lot of missional stuff, but before I do, mm-hmm. Give us a little background on your life and your family, and just mm-hmm. give us the Cliff Notes version of the Wilcox family.
Yeah, so I grew up in Bolivia. I was mm-hmm. born in the jungle, and my parents were there planting churches and preparing pastors and leaders. Dad established a Bible school there, and I was in boarding school for 10 years. I loved it. A lot of people have bad experiences, but I just really loved it. My brother, who was in school with me as well, didn't have a good experience, but I had a beautiful experience. And there, God established basically my relationship with him. Mm. And then when I was turning 16, I was sent back to Australia. My parents didn't want me to do the military training of Bolivia because being Bolivian, I would be required to go in there. Yeah. So I went to Australia, moved into a very conservative Baptist family. And for 8 years, I was in a very country conservative Baptist church, very small, beautiful. Out of that church, many missionaries went to the field and served the Lord. They were a beautiful family. And during that time, I had no idea that there was anything other than what I lived in the Baptist church. No idea that there was tension between charismatics and conservatives and
There's
so
tension?
on. No idea. I had no idea because I never heard of Pentecostals or charismatics.
Okay.
Right through my life until I was about 18.
Really?
Yeah. No idea. All I knew is that I loved Jesus.
Yeah.
Had a good relationship with him.
Yeah.
Loved him and had beautiful fellowship with him and loved serving him. And it was in Bolivia a month before I left Bolivia. One night I was in bed with the rest of my guys in my room. And I was just talking to the Lord. And I said to the Lord, I know that I'm leaving this boarding school where I've been so blessed. And I'm going to Australia, entering into a public school. And I have no idea if I'll find anybody who loves you. Mm. But I just want to tell you that I consecrate my life to you to serve you all the days of my life. And in that, I was just full of joy. I was exploding with joy, and I couldn't sleep all night. I didn't know that was the Holy Spirit. All I knew was I was so happy. Yeah. And since then, it's been a beautiful journey with him. So I went through school, high school, didn't finish high school. I left school when I was in 10th grade. Went through carpentry and building, was trained in that, went through technical school. And so I worked for 5 years as a builder. And then one day I was going out to a farm to visit a family to do Bible study with them, with the pastor. And I just said to him, I don't know why, all I said to him, Pastor, I just feel as if God's going to call me to the mission field. And he said to me, Peter, the day he calls you, the moment he calls you, obey, don't delay. Obey immediately. So anyway, a month went by and the Lord called me. And so I left everything.
Just walk me through with that. He called you. What did that look like? How did you know it was his voice?
Okay,
yeah,
so
like
what happened was right after I talked to the pastor, I had my holidays. And the ship Logos with Operation Mobilization came to town. I didn't know that. My sister was in university, and she came home and told me that a ship was in town, and it was a Christian ship, missionaries, and they'd come to the university and told her about the program that they had there, volunteers. So I said, wow. So I went, and I volunteered as a carpenter for the 3 weeks that they were there. And right on the last Saturday, they had a huge youth conference in the harbor warehouse. And so they preached and they made a call to all those who wanted to serve the Lord. So I went forward. And immediately the director pulled me to one side. He didn't know me and asked me who I was and my background and so forth. And he immediately brought out a form and said, would you like to join us now?
And how old were you at this time?
I was 24.
Okay.
Yeah, just turning 24. And so then, 5 weeks later, I went home to where my parents were. And I said to them, I was sitting it was early in the morning when I got home.
Wait, is this Bolivia?
This
home?
is Australia.
This is Australia home.
Yeah,
okay.
My parents had come home.
Okay.
And we were living with them. And I was sitting on the front steps and my mother comes out. And I said to her, Mom, I'm leaving. I'm going to the mission field. I'm serving the Lord. And she said, I know. I hadn't told her that, warned her or anything. And she said, I know. The Lord's already told me. And I bless you. And then Dad came out and I told him, he said, well, son, make sure you're making the right decision. That's a good father.
Yeah.
And prayed for me and blessed me. And so I left and haven't looked back since.
Wow. And how did you meet your wife?
I can give you the short story, the long
Whatever
story. It's
you want.
beautiful.
There's no rush.
It's such a beautiful story. So I was with the Logos for 3 years. After 2 years, I came home to Australia, to Brisbane, for my brother's wedding. And the first night that I was home with my parents and all our family, we were 6 siblings. We were all there, and we just finished dinner and just chatting when Debbie, without knocking, without anything, just opened the front door and walked in and sat down and started talking with everybody. And she had a nurse's uniform on. And I said, who on earth is this girl who thinks she can just come in and everybody scattered and left me all alone with her.
Yeah.
And so we just talked about OM, Operation Mobilization, what God was doing and so forth. And then she had to go to work. And so I was home for about a week. And my sisters tried to organize activities for us to get to know one another and get together.
So your sisters were working behind the scenes.
Yeah, definitely.
Were you like, hey, I met this girl?
No.
Sisters? No. They were just.
They were friends with my sisters.
Okay.
She was, sorry. And my mother would pass her my newsletters to her.
So your mom's working this. Like,
yes.
Who's like, I know you're going to do missions hey.
Yeah. And Debbie also had been called to go to Spain.
Okay.
As a single missionary, or she thought. And so she was given a list of names of people who knew Spanish, because she didn't know Spanish. She didn't know anybody who could speak Spanish. And on the list was my parents. And so she knocked on their door, and they were the only ones who were home. Out of all the lists, they were the only ones. And they were pastoring a Spanish-speaking Baptist church at that time. So she got involved with them, and gradually she got to meet Spanish-speaking people and so on. So then their OM had a alumni barbecue, and I was going, and I said, Debbie, would you like to come? Sure, I'd love to come. So she came, and I introduced her to a Bolivian girl who had been adopted by missionary people. And so she was taken to Australia as part of the family. And so she spoke perfect Spanish, and Latin American Spanish. And so Debbie was over the moon. They became really good friends.
Wow.
So anyway, so I say goodbye, and I go back. I go back to India where the ship was. And in the middle of one encounter I had with the ship, because I had been sent off the ship to do programming. I would go to different ports and do all the programming for the visit. And the director called me into his office, and he sat me down. He said, Peter, that's the first words he said, Peter, it's time for you to get married. And I thought, what? I said, I haven't thought of getting married at all. And he said to me, no, it's time for you to get married, and I just want to ask you if you have a friend, if you are in a relationship with any girl. And I said, no, because the policy of the organization is that we don't establish relationships while we're in ministry. And because the ship has 140 young people on board, not married.
Yeah.
And so there's strict social policies. And so I said, I'm concentrated. I'm not interested at the moment. And he said, but surely you know a girl.
Surely.
Yeah, surely you know somebody you might be interested in getting married to. And I said, no, not really. And then after a little while, I remembered Debbie.
Yeah.
I said, I do remember a girl. I said, I met this last visit. I went to Australia for my brother's wedding. And he said, well, what is her name? Her name's Debbie. What's her surname? Will Phillips. And where's her parents? They're members of a church, and I named the church and the area and the place and everything else. He said, I know that family, and which was crazy.
Yeah.
And I recommend her to you.
Well, I'm listening. I'm going to pull something up as you're telling the story.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I'm going to give people a little context.
Okay.
How old was she?
She was 18.
Uh-huh.
And I was 24 in that conversation. Okay. And so he said, I give you permission to write to her. So in those days, there was no email.
Right.
And so it was just by writing letters. And so every month we'd get a letter from each other. And then then God told me that I needed to leave the ship and go and go through Baptist seminary.
Okay.
So I went through the Baptist seminary, and in that period of time, 2 years of studies that I was there, she was finishing her series of studies at the same time. We fell in love, and we were engaged during our time of studies. And then a week after we graduated, we got married, and that's them. That's it. That's our engagement party.
So I'll throw this up on the screen. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Do you know how I got this?
No, I have no idea.
Don't worry. I'm not telling you. And I've had this for a while.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll throw that up.
She's really, really beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I was so proud of her. Yeah. That's our wedding day.
Yeah. So, oh gosh. So how old? Hold on. So how old were you guys in this photo?
So in the wedding, I was 24 and she was 19 and I was 25. Sorry. Yeah.
And where was this photo taken?
That was in Australia. And then 5 months later, we went to Spain.
5 months later.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a whole generation that's watching this, that's going through dating.
Yeah.
You never dated. She was the first.
Yeah.
girl?
She was my first. Yeah. Never dated.
Were you the first?
Yep.
That she had ever dated?
No, I think she might have. No, she had a friend, but not dating seriously. Just friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your greatest piece of dating, non-dating? You just tell us. Like, you've also raised 7 children.
Yeah, 7 kids.
And what's the spread?
So from, well, Annalise and Antoinette being twins, they're 38, 39 now, and the youngest is 12 or 11. Yeah.
So you've had quite a lot of experience with many generations.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Give us.
Because we've got Annalise and Antoinette and Elias. Well, no, Antoinette and Elias are one generation. Elias, Miriam, and Michaela, another generation. And then Carmely and Jemima, another generation. And each generation is different.
Okay.
But because we lived in Mozambique all their young lives growing up, they were in very isolated situations. They had no chance of meeting their spouses where we were. If they wanted to marry people outside of Africa.
Yeah.
It's just that every time a child is born in our family, God ministers to us about the purpose and the giftings and so forth of our children.
Like day one?
Yeah, from before they're born.
Okay.
Okay, so we because we pray for our kids before they're born, and like for instance Elias, before he was born, the Lord told us he was going to be a boy, and what his name was, and what his ministry would be, and so we know when there's somebody like there've been lots of guys who were interested in Annalise and Antoinette before they met their spouses. And but I'd say sorry, they'd have to come through me before.
Really?
Oh yes.
Okay, so your policy is if you're interested in any of our kids, you gotta pass the Debbie Peter test.
Yes.
And so are you like, okay, what's God have for your life? What's your plan?
Well, not like that.
Okay.
But like for instance, Annalisa. Her calling is very compassionate. She's prophetic, worship, and so anybody who is going to be coming to marry her also would have to have the same vision. Because if God joins two people together, how can they walk together if they're not united? You know, and because so many times people get together, but one has got interest in one way, one is right, and so it's difficult for them to walk together.
Yeah,
and so I had one guy who said he had a dream that God told him that he was going to marry Annalisa, and he told me the dream, and I said, "Tell you what," I said, "from what the dream is, I'm responsible to shut the gate."
Really?
That, yes.
Okay, so what would you say to somebody that says like, that sounds like a very controlling father?
Right.
Let your kids explore.
Right.
You know, they won't know what they really like unless they make some mistakes. And what would you say?
I mean, everybody's free.
To
parent the way.
But I want the Wilcox strategy.
But because I know that God gave our children not just to have a family.
Right.
God gave us children for a purpose. And it was for his glory, his kingdom, the purposes for which he gave them life. And so their lives belong to him. So if God is in it, then anybody who comes has to coincide with what God has for Annalisa and for them as well. And God gave both of us a sense of peace every time somebody came that was interested in marrying one of our daughters. Yes, this is the one. And like, for instance, with Antoinette and
just Hank is sitting off camera.
Right.
Was he your first?
Yes.
He was your first son-in-law?
Yes. So what happened there
was
that we had come to Pemba from Lishinga, which is the place where we established the base. And we'd gone there for harvest school. And while we were there, the house that we bought was up for sale.
Yeah.
Joe and his wife, Marianne. And they were selling. They were going back to the States. And God told us we had to buy it. And so we were thinking that we're going to buy that house for investment and that we would rent it and
Yep.
that would cover a lot of our expenses and support. And the Lord said to Debbie, "No, you're not. That house is for Antoinette and Hank." And in that time, Antoinette and Hank weren't friends.
They weren't even friends.
No.
Stop.
No. And so we immediately covered ourselves. We hid that because we couldn't say anything. And we knew then that we had to buy the house.
Hold on.
That house was destined for Hank and Antoinette.
Okay, I love that. Time out. Had Debbie met Hank yet?
Oh, yeah. We
Okay.
knew Hank.
So you knew him.
We knew him, but there was no relationship.
They had not connected.
No.
Was Debbie like at night as you're going to bed, is Debbie like, man, I really like Hank for
No.
Antoinette?
No.
No.
No. No. She said, she was shocked when she heard that. And we just had to just release it and just see what God would do.
Right.
And shortly after we bought that, they announced their friendship, and
Yeah.
so we knew, okay, this is Hank. God had already revealed that to
And
us.
just a few weeks ago, you had your 5th grandchild.
Yes.
They just had their 5th child.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's great comfort for us as parents, knowing that God was going to lead and provide spouses for each of our children.
That's amazing. So what I hear is intentionality from before they're born,
Yes.
right? But I also hear you guys saying, like, if the Lord brings us a child, right, we are like, I could be mistaken, but you guys don't do family planning, right?
No, we don't.
You just go,
We trust God.
we trust God.
He's sovereign.
To the point where you have almost 40-year-olds through, how old's your
11.
youngest? 11.
Yes.
A lot of people would say, like, how do you live that way? You don't have a full-time job per se.
No,
like there
no.
isn't,
Yeah.
you live entirely off support. I've never heard you ask for anything. I've never heard your wife ask for anything. I've never seen you do fundraising. I've never gotten a fundraising letter from you. So you've lived your whole life in obedience.
Yeah.
He's provided. You've trusted him for all the kids. So like for, let's say somebody watching this, that this is everything you're saying is very foreign to them, right? Like, and I've lived around you guys and I know you guys and I do my best to live like this. Even me, I'm going like everything in here and just like, ooh, okay. Like I know it, I love it, but it sounds so foreign.
Yeah. What we're living is something very personal in the sense that this is God's dealing with us as a family.
I love that.
Okay. And God deals with other families in different ways.
Right.
Because when we went to Spain, we weren't planning on having children. We weren't planning. So we had our protection, to not have children. And but after 1 year, sovereignly God caused Debbie to be conceived, and we had twins. And that wasn't planned. That wasn't what we had been expecting.
Yeah.
And then after they were born, after 4 years, Debbie had a miscarriage. And so we thought, okay, well, we've got 2 girls. That's enough for a missionary family. And it's easy to travel. They've grown up beautiful girls, very flexible. We can do things, whatever we need to do. So, but then 9 years go by and God speaks and challenges Debbie. Are you willing to have more children? And are you willing, you say that I'm sovereign over your lives, but in this area, are you willing for me to be sovereign of having children?
Yeah.
And she had to struggle. I didn't have to have that struggle.
Can I ask you a question? This might be too personal, but I want to ask it.
Yeah.
Were you guys using protection? Were you
Up until then, yes.
Up until that point?
Yes.
Okay, so you have evolved.
Yes.
In your view
Yes.
on his sovereignty
Yes.
with your family.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been a journey.
Yeah.
It's been a journey. And then for me, not in that area so much as I've been on a journey, because in that time, just before Debbie, God was challenging Debbie about having more children, God gave me a dream. And in the dream, It was 15th century Germany. And I walked into a farmhouse, these old style stone farmhouses. And I walk in and there's a huge family right around a big table. And the father was sitting at the head with a big Bible open in front of him with a fireplace behind him. And he looks up at me as I come in and he said, "Peter, you're welcome." And he said, "Could you please give us a study on rest?" And I was shocked. And I said, "I'm sorry, I'm not ready for that." And I walked out. And I knew that God was going to take me on a journey about rest.
Wow.
And so all of this, what Debbie was going to go through, having more children, it's also part of that journey of rest, of trusting the Lord, trusting his sovereignty, his love, his care. And would I be willing to, every aspect of my life, come to a place of rest because he cares for us? And so that's been the journey even until now.
Rest. So to me, it sounds like you're using the word rest as like confidence in the Lord.
Yes, peace.
Doing what he says he's going to do.
Yeah, I don't have to be anxious for things.
I mean, I feel like the word says that.
Yeah.
But walking in it's a different thing.
Yes. Yeah, we know the doctrine.
Yeah.
But to actually make it flesh is very challenging.
So that is a foundation of your life. But you have lived in war zones.
Yes.
Like you have been attacked.
Yes.
You have had many of your kids have had major issues on the field. Was it Annalise who almost died?
All of our children have almost died.
Okay. Okay. So I know some of the stories.
So you know some of this. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 2022. I was thinking about my life on the mission field. And when I look back, I see that, it's been a lot of suffering. It's been a lot of suffering. I remember when God called us to come to Mozambique, I had a conversation with God, but mainly a one-sided conversation from my part. I was telling the Lord, when I go to Mozambique, I know it's a country that's developing. I know there's a lot of need. There's a lot of sickness. There's little medical facilities. People die. Children die. So I ask that my life, my family can be an example of that will challenge the people, Mozambican people, that they can trust the Lord, that he's able to keep them and keep them from sickness, death, bring healing, whatever is needed. God is able to do that. Yeah. And so I was happy about that. And so when we go to Mozambique, we go to a mission compound in Beira, and for language and all sorts of things. So we didn't speak Portuguese. And in the first month, I get sick with malaria. And I didn't believe it. I was in denial. And the leader of the base said to me, "Peter, go get a test." I said, "No, I don't need a test. I'm not sick. I must have done some work that my muscles are a little bit sore because of that, but I'm not sick." "Okay," she said. So next day I wake up and I'm worse. And so she said, "Go get a test." So I went and get a test, got a test, and it came out negative, and I was so happy. I said, "See, I don't have malaria." It came out negative. She said, I don't agree, but anyway. So the third day, I wake up and I'm worse. I go get another test, and it comes out positive and very bad. So they gave me medication, but there's no response to the medication. I get worse, and I get worse, and I get worse. Vomiting, shiverings, headaches, diarrhea. And I'm thin after 6 days. On the 7th day, I'd given up. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
and I was weak in bed. Debbie and the family had gone out for prayer about 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was by myself in the room. And through the week, we'd been putting worship, praying, interceding, asking for healing, but nothing happened. So the seventh day, I'm in bed, and I remember a prophetic word of a retired pastor in Australia just before we came away. And he said, when sickness knocks on the door, get up, raise your hands, and worship. And I said to the Lord, but Lord, that's what I've been doing all week. I've been worshiping you, praising you. And but there was that insistence. And I said, okay, Lord, I'll get up and I'll worship you because I love you. And you're worthy to be worshipped. And I'd given up hope of, healing. I always thought I was going to die. So I get up really weakly. I hold on to the wall and I lift my hands and I just begin to love him, just worship him. Instantly, I'm healed. Everything disappeared. All my strength came back. I didn't have to recover. I was totally restored.
Wow.
And I said, wow, Lord, this is amazing. So I go have a shower and I get ready to go to the city. I've got a lot of things to do. And anyway, so since then, we've all suffered.
Yeah.
And we've gone through a lot of conflict. And God has done miracles.
Yeah.
And I look back, and on that day, I was in 2020, and the Lord said to me, Peter, the Mozambican didn't need a proud, arrogant white man,
right,
who never gets sick, never suffers.
Right.
What they needed was somebody who could identify with them. And I said, okay, Lord, that's beautiful. That's fine. And so I look back at that and I see, Lord, I appreciate that. That instead of them me never getting sick, I got sick. And they were encouraged, the people were encouraged because of the fact that I could trust the Lord in my sickness, in my difficulties, all the stuff that we've gone through, and still rejoice in him and still see him working and being faithful and everything.
Yeah. Wow. You have this amazing family. And I was there when Carmelie was born.
Right. No, when Jemima was born.
No.
Carmelie was 1 year old when we came to Mozambique.
Really?
Yeah. She was 1 year old.
Okay. Then, yes, I just remember. Are you sure?
Yeah. Positive. I'll tell you why.
I'm sure. I don't question anything you say.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
When we came to Mozambique and came to the missionary base in Beira, she was able to walk, which was a miracle. She was 1 year old, normally a Down syndrome child. Finds it difficult to develop, and so and they take a long time to get to walk and so forth. But she was able to walk.
Okay.
When she was 1.
The reason why I just remember praying for Carmelie. Right. And you mentioned that she has Down syndrome.
Yes.
She's now 8.
She's 19.
19. She just turned 19.
Yeah.
And Carmelie has been such a shining ray of light.
Yes.
I'm not supposed to have favorites, but out of all your family, she gives the best hugs.
Yeah.
Talk to me on because I feel like the reason why I bring it up is I feel like so many people would say, like, don't raise a daughter with special needs on the field, right? Come home, get around medical care. Would you mind sharing a little bit of your journey with Carmelie? Because I bet, just as a father, doing missions, giving my life in obedience, I feel like that would throw me a curveball.
Right. When she was born, the Lord had already warned Debbie that we were getting a child. We will have a child. She didn't realize it, but when the baby was born, she almost died. And when they did tests that same day or the following day, they did tests on her and found that she had Down syndrome.
This was
in Australia.
This is in Australia. Okay.
In Melbourne.
So she knew that Carmelie had Down before?
No.
Or
No, it's just that when God told her
yeah.
to have more children after the twins, before Elias was born, part of that journey was a magazine that came. And the whole magazine had to do with family and children, having children. And
is this better something Rubies magazine?
Yes, Above Rubies.
Oh, Above Rubies. Did she get that in Mozambique?
It's a friend, no, not even a friend. Somebody just sent it to her out of the blue.
We used to get sent them in Mozambique from someone. I don't know who.
I don't know who, but we received one.
Okay.
And in that edition, there was a Down syndrome girl. They were talking about a Down syndrome, and she looked just like Carmelie now. She dug up that magazine too, and the mother's name was Debbie, and so forth. And so, and Debbie was crying when she was reading that.
1 second. Hank's motioning somebody to me off camera.
I live half an hour from here.
Who does?
Above Rubies.
Above Rubies is the magazine.
organization.
The organization is a half hour from here.
Yeah.
Above Rubies, if I can remember it, I read the magazine. It kind of weirded me out a little bit. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I remember the family that gave it to us. They were missionaries that had, I think 8 kids.
Right.
They're amazing family. And they used to give my wife these magazines and we would like look through it. And I was like, whoa, it was like, turn the page, 12 kids.
They're radical.
It's a different kind of tribe in the Christian world. And I love it. Like there's nothing, but I remember the magazine. Okay, so Debbie got a copy of this,
and as she was reading the magazine, that had an article about Down syndrome, and just talking about how to raise a Down syndrome child. And Debbie, before she met me, was interested in actually caring for Down syndrome children. So, anyways, when they told her that she was Down syndrome, she received the child with gratefulness. It was an amazing encounter there.
Yeah.
And but anyway, and we considered it a privilege, and an honor that we should be found worthy to receive a child like that. And so anyway, when she was 1. After she was born, God called us to Mozambique. So through the couple of months, then we were preparing, and we didn't tell the health authorities that we were leaving because they might say something about us not going because of the child. And so we just left and took the baby with us to Mozambique. When she was 1, we went, and because of the ground being so contaminated with sicknesses and with insects and mataqueña, the worm that goes in under the skin. And
they're bot flies. They burrow into your skin and they grow. Yeah,
they leave eggs in there.
Oh, I used to get them.
Yeah, our kids too.
So
anyways,
fun.
Debbie didn't want her to get contaminated or infected or anything with the ground, so she would put her in the pram. And we would carry her everywhere like that.
For Americans, a pram is like a stroller.
A stroller.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, and she lost her ability to walk.
Wow.
And then after 6 months, we had to go out of Mozambique to South Africa to renew our visas. And the house who hosted us was double-story, and she loved the stairs. So she crawled up and down, and she got her strength back, and she began to walk again. And so we learned that we couldn't deprive her or protect her from whatever everybody else is going through. She was part of our family, part of the protection of God, whatever, and we need to release her to experience life just naturally like every other child would, and not consider her as a special needs child. Right. Just treat her like normal. But that was a huge lesson for me. Yeah. Because the more you try to protect the kids, the less they learn to trust God.
Say that again?
the more you try and protect the kids and protect them from all the stuff that goes around them, the less or the weaker their trust in God will be. For example, we tried to protect Carmelie. And because of that, she lost her ability to walk. She lost her strength.
So I understand what you're saying. What is the difference between like being a good parent, where you're doing the best, right?
Yes.
Like you want to protect your kids.
Yeah.
When we had Josh in Mozambique, we covered mosquito nets every night because malaria was coming in. I had malaria when Moosey was pregnant. If Moosey got malaria, it was, I think, 75% mortality rate of Josh. What's the balance?
Okay.
Is there balance?
Yeah, there is a balance.
Okay.
Because we had mosquito nets too.
Right.
We weren't going to expose her to mosquitoes and not give her a mosquito net.
I'm with you. I know, but there's like I want to know what that line is.
So,
because most parents would be like, yeah, don't let your baby that's struggling with whatever. I don't know what goes on physically with Down syndrome children, but I don't know, weakened immune system, whatever it is, you don't want them to get bot flies,
no,
right?
Of course not.
Yeah.
But if they're going to be, they need to play. They need to be in the mud.
Yeah.
They need to be in the dirt. And the Mozambican kids we were looking after Mozambican kids, and she was one of them, and she loved it.
Yeah.
And she would come in mud covered, everything else, but she was fine.
Yeah.
Sure, the normal protection that we would give to any child, that's what we would give. I know in some countries, in other situations, we'd give more protection than we would normally give in other situations. And we protect our children a lot.
Yeah.
You
do.
We do.
But in a different way.
Yes.
It's not a withholding.
No.
I see you both very protective of hearts, motives, motivation, what's behind the decisions, why you're making the decisions. Yes. I see more than most an extreme intentionality in you and Debbie.
Yeah.
Into their faith.
But as far as physical things are concerned, we want them to be exposed to the hardships, just like we are exposed to the hardships, and to learn to cope with that.
Yeah.
And but as far as spiritual things, emotional things, we try and prepare them.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Right now, you can get your pregnancy tested. And I know in a lot of, I believe it's Europe, if they detect Down syndrome, they advise to terminate the life of the baby. And that's happening. And I know, what would you say to a parent who is legitimately concerned, like they've never faced, for them this is the biggest thing, they find out that their child isn't maybe what they dreamed, right? That it would look like. What would you say to that parent if they're watching? That maybe he's got that news and they know they don't want to terminate, they don't want to kill the baby.
Yeah. If they are people who trust the Lord, who love the Lord, and who acknowledge the Lord as sovereign and loving and kind, I understand that these days there's a lot of diseases that maybe in the past there wasn't so much of, and today, I don't know why, but a lot of babies are born with deficiencies and so on.
Am I putting you on the spot, Peter?
No,
I hope I'm not.
I'm just trying to express myself correctly.
You don't worry. I don't need you to do it correctly. I want you to just express your heart. What would Debbie tell you to say if she was
I just cast myself on the Lord.
Yeah.
And know that He's sovereign.
Yeah.
That He cares. And that whatever child we receive, God's grace is sufficient.
Yeah.
Not because every child, like for instance, all of our children were born healthily and so forth, normally. Carmelie was born healthily and normally.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people want a perfect child because there's a society is established that this is the right style of child you need
Right.
and what we would like and expect. Everything else outside of that is not a normal child,
Yeah.
which I believe is wrong.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Okay, so if a child is expected and doctors diagnose that there's something wrong with the baby, God can quite easily intervene.
Yeah.
And heal that baby in the womb, or the child is born with whatever deficiency, whatever is they've diagnosed, and God can heal that child after birth, or give grace to the parents to be able to raise the child
Right.
with its limitations, whatever it is, for the glory of the Lord.
Yeah.
Because for the Lord, there's no difference. There's no difference. He loves every child that comes into the world.
I heard Francis Chan recently preach a message on Romans 5:5, I believe it is. And it was something, actually, I'll just crack it open really quick, because it was something that I had heard, but the way that he put it, I loved it. And Carmelie is just incredible. But he said this, he made this statement, Romans 5:5. It really shifted something in my heart. He said, therefore, since we've been justified through faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we've gained access by faith into the grace in which we now stand. This is 5:1. I'm just going to go on, and he goes on to say that we rejoice in our sufferings. And it says this, and hope does not disappoint us, because God has poured out his love into our hearts by the Holy Spirit whom he's given us. And he made this statement. He said, the Holy Spirit is given into our hearts, not our heads. And he said this, if the Holy Spirit was in our head knowledge, then anybody with special needs would not have full access to God.
Yes.
And I'd never heard that statement. If our faith and our love for God was just a head knowledge, then a large portion of humans would not be able to gain access to that. And for me, it was it was just this beautiful statement, even for me, like that I can't get into what I know. This isn't just a head knowledge of God. This is a heart knowledge. And I see that in the life of Carmelie.
Yeah.
I see that in so many kids.
Yeah. Like, I mean, even with Carmelie, she finds it difficult to express herself. And anybody who wants to have a conversation with her, she's able to have a conversation.
Yes.
But you have to be aware that she will jump from one topic to another one completely different.
That's just me. That's literally me.
Okay.
That's why we talk
different.
well.
And you need to flow with it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, God isn't limited to that.
No.
And even her understanding, you might be talking to her about certain things, she doesn't understand what you're talking about, unless it's already in her experience or her paradigm, But her experiences with God are huge. And she's in his presence a lot of the time. And
my wife and I last night, not because we were having this conversation, just last night we were talking and going over our week, and she shared to me that how much she enjoyed being at worship with Carmelie,
right,
and Ruthie,
right,
and watching the two of them worship, and then like play, and then go right back into worship. Just last night we were talking about it, how beautiful her faith is.
Yeah,
I have so many questions I want to ask you.
Yeah, just one thing related to that other question you had about raising family, children on the mission field, is that if God calls you to the mission field, it really isn't any different to staying home and having your work and that. Whatever. It's no different. The same faith is necessary. The same challenges are there, whether it's on the mission field or at home. It doesn't really make any difference. You got dangers here as well as dangers over there. May look different,
right?
But the same challenges, same dangers, and so forth. So taking your children to the mission field, it's no different.
I know.
You still have to trust the Lord.
But explain that to somebody who has you grew up on the missions field, you've done it. Yes. So it's easier for you to say. How would you explain it to somebody that goes, no, going to Mozambique or going whatever, pick your nation where there's no healthcare, there's no, there's lack of law, you know, like if I was to weigh it out, pros and cons, what's dangerous in the natural, what's less dangerous?
Yes.
Right? A nation like America would probably be less dangerous. How would you, than Mozambique? It is. How would you explain that to someone? That I understand what you're saying, God's God.
Yeah. But like, for instance, here in Greenville, in
Franklin. Yeah.
You've still got the same situation, you need food.
Yep.
You need to have an income. You need to go out, buy, you need to look after your children. You need to teach, give them an education. Everything is the same on the mission field.
Yeah.
The life here for me is actually more difficult than it is on the mission field.
Okay.
Because of the affluence that you have here can suck your faith.
Right.
And whereas on the mission field, it's constantly alive. You have to constantly be aware that it's nothing, you have no resource sufficient to be able to survive. And you have to trust the Lord. And so you guys living here in the affluence find it a lot more difficult to maintain your faith and intimacy with the Lord.
I agree.
And so for me, I admire you guys living here because with all the stuff that you have, the danger is you have it. You don't need God. And yet we desperately need God. And so to raise children in this environment is very difficult because the children so easily see everything provided, everything they have. What is God? Why is it necessary to seek after God?
Right.
And so forth. What is the need for God? And so to raise a child in this atmosphere is very challenging. Whereas on the mission field, you can raise your children and expose them to the needs that we have, and they need to trust God.
So I have a theory, Peter.
Yes.
Help me out with this theory, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you can disagree with me. Here's my theory.
Mm-hmm.
In our Iris missionary world, very, very few, I might be able to count on half of a hand, kids that I know that are missionary kids. Because there's this stigma on missionary kids, PKs, MKs, right? There's a stigma that they are rebellious, that they, they're hurt and their parents screwed everything up. As of today, I might know one or two kids in all of our 500 missionaries and more, that actually don't love the Lord. I'm only a couple. And even from those, I wouldn't even say that that's an accurate statement. They're in the process and a journey in all of Iris. But yet I hear story after story after story of missionary kids that aren't walking with the Lord, that had a horrible experience. Their parents, got fried, I don't see that in Iris. Praise God. Here's my theory.
Right.
My theory is we don't see that because there's a passion and a reality of the provision of the Lord. So like even if the kids are struggling, they see the faith of their parents and they know that it's genuine.
Yes.
Because they're seeing it walked out every day. On the contrast, I think it is harder in the States or in an affluent place because maybe the children see the parents' faith walked out on a Sunday, right? And then dabbled here and there.
Yes.
But I think, especially in Iris, if I walked up to any of the kids, even the ones that are in their little faith process right now, they would go, yeah, my mom and dad are honest. They can't deny what they've seen God do. They might be struggling through it, but there is a real genuine faith that gets walked out there. But you came from missions, right? I'm sure you've heard the horrible missionary stories. What's your take on that? That's a long question.
But my experience as a MK, I found in my own personal experience as I watched my parents, when they dropped us off at boarding school, for example, their take on it was that they were leaving me there at school because it was good for me. And a lot of parents, when they were dropping off their children for the boarding school, they wouldn't see them for 5 or 6 months.
Right.
And so they would lament, they would cry, and they would say, I'm sorry, but because we need to serve the Lord, we need to go and do this and this. We need to leave you here, and we're really sorry, and so forth. What does that do? That plants seeds of rebellion against God, because it's God's fault that there's division.
Yep.
And it's a sad thing.
Right.
It's destructive, and so forth.
Yeah.
My mom never did that. She said, this is going to be a blessing for you.
Yeah.
We're really glad that you're going to be here, and so on. And she never, ever put God down or used the work or the ministry as an excuse for that. And so I had a high esteem of God. She was always happy. She was, just always giggling and carrying on, And she might have cried and whatever when she was gone, but in my presence, she was happy. But anyway, like you said, right from the very beginning of our relationship, Debbie and I, our heart was to worship. It was our relationship with the God, and it had to have an integrity to it. It wasn't just worshiping the Lord when everything was fine, but also when there's the suffering and difficulties and so forth. And we didn't hide our children from that.
Yeah.
Whatever we were going through, we involved them in that. And so when we were worshiping, they were worshiping. When we were going through bad stuff, they were going through bad stuff too. Yeah. And we were honest with them with finances and everything else. Look, we need to pray. God is good. We need this. And they always saw God responding and our trust in Him and so forth. And then whenever God would lead us to do anything, we always involved the children, because we didn't want them to just tag along,
right,
and follow their parents because they have to,
right.
But we involved them in seeking the Lord together and seeking His direction, and the Lord would speak to them as well as to us. And so they knew that this is God, not just our parents,
right,
doing this, because their love for God, we need to tag along, and so they're suffering because they're following God. No, they themselves also were following the Lord.
Yeah.
And we're together, and so they grew up acknowledging God's sovereignty and His lordship over their life as well as our lives.
Yeah, I have so many stories of your truck. Can you share about this truck? I'm going to see if I can put a picture up of this truck.
Okay.
And I know it's silly, but I can't tell you how many miracles I've heard about this truck. Yeah, right. Can you just tell us about your truck?
Yeah, really the miracles using the truck,
Yeah.
What
is it, by the way?
Toyota Hilux.
What year?
1994.
And how many?
I did about 500,000 kilometers on it.
Which is roughly 250? No,
300
miles.
Yeah.
And this isn't on a road. We're talking the roughest terrain.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So anyways.
How did you get it?
That's a miracle.
We're going to make a t-shirt with the Wilcox truck on it. It is a representation of Iris. And I just want to bring people into one of the best things.
Right.
In the Iris lore. Okay. It's the Wilcox truck.
Yeah. So anyway, we were sent to Lishinga. Mm-hmm. We had nothing.
Yeah.
We had no vehicles, nothing. So I walked everywhere and public transport. And then I borrowed a bicycle and I used that. I went bush. I would travel 70 kilometers, 140 kilometers a day, visiting churches and so forth on this bicycle. And then God provided for a motorbike, 50cc.
Yeah.
And then somebody gave a check to buy an old 1969 short wheelbase Land Rover.
Okay.
And that lasted for about 1 year and gave up.
Land Rovers are made for this territory.
Yes.
Okay. So they are made to go rough, mm-hmm. And it only lasted a year.
It only lasted a year because it was already badly treated when I got it. So anyways, 3 months went by
Yeah.
without a vehicle. I went back to using a bicycle. And I said to the Lord, I'd really love to have a vehicle if that could be possible. It would help a lot in visiting the villages and so on.
And you're not sending out letters, hey, we lost our Land Rover.
No.
There's none of
Nothing.
that.
No.
Okay.
Okay,
we'll get to that later.
That's where Father, the Heavenly Father says, just go into your little room, pray to your Father, okay?
Yo, listen.
And he who listens in secret will answer you in public. And so...
You don't mean fundraise? He doesn't. I thought he meant fundraise and like tell everybody.
Sorry.
And live in fear.
No. No. So anyways, what happened was I get a phone call from a friend of mine in Australia. And he says, Peter, you wouldn't be needing a vehicle, would you? And I said, well, actually, I do. And he said, well, I have a friend in New Zealand who would like to give you something to buy a vehicle with. I said, okay. And I asked him, well, how much is he willing to give so that I know my price range? And he said he's willing to give $10,000. Okay, that's Australian dollars. Mm-hmm. So I start searching. I don't find anything. And I go down to Maputo and I search through all of the city of Maputo for something that would be $10,000.
Yeah.
Before I went down to Maputo, I grabbed whatever loose cash I had, and it was $200. I put that into my account. And so we go down, and I meet Gordy.
A Haggerty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. There in Zimpeto.
One of Rollins' best friends, been around Iris forever.
Exactly.
Was on the board early on. Yep.
Yeah. And so we're chatting. We're chatting away, and I said to him, Gordy, there wouldn't have been a gift coming in for us there in the United States, would there? And he said, no, I don't think so. But let me just check. So he checks. He says, hey, Peter, there's a gift here of $1,000 that was sent a year ago, and I forgot to give it to you. He said, well, could you transfer that over to our account? And he said, sure. So he did that in that moment. And so... Then I kept looking and looking, and next day I went into the last used car lot, and I saw this red truck. And so I talked to the owner, and I said to him, could I buy this truck? It was $16,000.
Yeah.
And I said, if I paid cash, how much would you give me? How much could I buy it for? And he said $15,000. Okay, all right. So I said, I gave him a down payment. It was only about $100 that I had. So I gave it to him. And so he prepared the car. And I notified my friend in Australia, and he notified his friend, and they transferred the money. So when I opened up my bank account, there wasn't $10,000 that he'd sent. It was $13,800. And so with the 1,000 that Gordy sent and the 200 is exactly 15,000. And so I wrote out the check and I gave it to the guy, and I hopped into the truck and I was driving it out, and I look at the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And it's not the normal standard Toyota steering wheel. It's a sports steering wheel that was put on by the Japanese guy.
Aftermarket.
Yeah. The previous owner was a Japanese young guy.
Yeah. Japan has like a date that they're allowed to keep vehicles for. Afterwards, just to explain it, like, because you only find this stuff out when you're on the mission field. They send all of their old vehicles to different nations. Mm-hmm. So there's a big import lots with all these Japanese cars. Yes. So like you get them and there's Japanese writing on the inside. And
exactly.
Yes.
So this guy had sports stickers all over the thing. And I look at the steering wheel, and it's got wings on it. It's a stainless steel steering wheel, and the writing in it, in the middle thing where the horn is, Wilcox.
Stop. Yeah. No.
Yes.
No. What is that even? No. You're not allowed to say that. I've never heard this.
Yes. I got the photo of it. I
can
send it to you.
You're gonna send it to me, and we'll stick it on there. Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Now that you've never lied to me.
You talked to Annalisa. She's got the car now.
She does?
Yes.
Okay, so it's still running.
It's still running.
Okay, so Wilcox is on the steering wheel.
Yes, it's steer, and I didn't realize it when I bought it.
Wow.
That was like that. And anyway, so one day we had to go to Pemba from Beira. It's 1,300 kilometers, and it was wartime. It was the conflict between Renamo and Frelimo. And cars were being shot up all the time.
Yeah.
And cars had to go in escorted up and down along the main road. And so we were invited to go up to the harvest school by Pamela to help in the harvest school.
Yeah.
And so we said to our girls were 15, 16 at the time, Miriam and Michaela.
Yeah.
And we said to them, look, we're being invited and we're going to be traveling up. And they said, no, we're not. They said, no, we don't want to go. It says, our friends will think we're crazy. We're just going to die on the road.
Yeah.
And I didn't force it. I said, okay, girls, it's all right. Tonight, let's get together as a family and we'll seek the Lord about it. And we'll ask him whether we should go or not. So we got together and the Lord spoke to the two girls very strongly and even gave Michaela the dates, the actual time frame that we had to be there and come back. And they were crying and so forth. We realized we need to go, but we're afraid. And it's okay. I said, you're fine. And in the morning, they were happy. So anyway, so we planned our trip and we decided to go through a shortcut, which is sand and cuts about 3 hours drive off of the drive. And so we loaded up and we go to Pemba and everything's quiet along the roads.
Do you have all 7 kids or just?
No, Anissa and Antoinette are married.
Okay, so you have 5.
So I have Elias, Miriam, and Michaela. And no, Elias is already up in Pemba with a harvest school. Okay. So we've got Miriam, Michaela, Carmely, and Jemima. Okay. 4 kids.
This is just a 2 seats up front and then like a row,
3 in the back. But we put 4 in the back.
I've heard stories of all of your family in the back, like more than 4 in the back.
That was before Antoinette and Hank were married,
You all like carved out a little spot on the floor and I love it. But continue on.
Yeah, so anyway, so we go through and we see all these armed people but they don't see us. And we go through and we go to cross the main bridge over the Rio Zambezia. And the police stop us and because we have to pay the toll. And we go through and there's all these soldiers with machine guns and so forth. And we get to the end, getting into Nampula, and we're stopped and says, how did you get here? Where are our comrades back there? I know they're fine. I said, we went by them. They let us go through. And he was so puzzled because we weren't supposed to have come through. We were supposed to have come through with the escort, but we came through by ourselves. And so we got to Pemba, did all of our stuff. And I had to go to Lishinga. And on the way back to Pemba, before we drove back down to Beira, I said to the Lord, I wanted to ask your opinion about when we should go back or what time of the day we should go back. Because if I leave Pemba early in the morning, I will get into Beira, Dondo, about 2:00 in the morning. And that's nighttime. Yeah. Going through the bush and the jungle there in the reserve of the Gorongosa Reserve. It'll be all jungle, and that's Renamo territory. Yeah. Do you want us to go that nighttime? Or should we leave at night here and get there in the daytime? And immediately he spoke to me through Psalm 23. He says, even though you go through the valley of the shadow of death, you'll feel no evil. Okay, all right, that's fine, Lord. So we left early in the morning and we got there at nighttime and everything was fine. But it's been amazing with that vehicle. Everybody knows that vehicle nationwide.
So you are not allowed to, your daughter cannot sell that. If they ever get to a point where they want to sell it, I will buy it. Okay. And that thing has to stay in Iris hands.
Yeah. So
I will ship it out to Franklin, Tennessee.
Right.
And we will just
have it there on the thing.
We'll just create a Because I've heard stories of it just falling apart,
Yeah.
like fixing it with random things on the side of the road.
Yes.
And what I love, what I love so much about it is that you use what you have, and you're very content
Yes.
with whatever you have.
Yes.
Where did that come from?
Way back there in Spain when the Lord told me about my journey of rest, that I needed to learn to trust him for his provision. Whatever I needed, he was the one that would provide for it. Because if he sends me, then he's the one that's backing me.
Yeah.
And that's been our confidence and our experience right through since Spain.
Yeah.
So we went to Spain 1985, and since then God has provided. Even when God called us back from Spain to Australia, we didn't know why he was taking us back. All he told us that we had to go back. Yeah. So we went back because God doesn't have to explain himself. So he sent us back, and then he told us that we were to pastor a Spanish-speaking Baptist church in Melbourne. And so we moved down there, and the elders got me together with them and said, look, we want to settle the wage, the salary. And I said to them, I don't want a salary. God hasn't called me here to get a salary. I'm serving him, and I'm serving you. And he will supply what I need. And so they said, all right, okay. I said, if the church in any way wants to give an offering, whatever, I'm happy to receive that, but I'm not here because of a wage or a salary. And so that was it. So for 2 years, I served there, and the Lord provided everything that we needed.
Wow. I know that, you and Debbie wouldn't even come on here without praying about it.
Yeah.
And so I know that you've been praying about coming on here. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you felt like you needed to share during this time?
Here in the States?
Yeah. No, in this podcast.
Oh.
I almost already know the answer, that there's something, but was there anything that you felt like you wanted to share during this time?
That verse of Romans 5:5, God spoke to me this morning.
Are you serious? Peter, why did you wait now? What have you been doing here, Peter?
I was just curious as to why.
I'm just gonna flip the table. Are you serious?
No, I'm serious. Yeah, I'll tell you why. It says, Romans 5:5. I haven't got my glasses with me, but anyway, it says, now hope does not disappoint, because the love of God has been poured out in our hearts by the Holy Spirit, who is given to us. The love of God is it's not something that we can produce, but it's something that he pours out into our heart. And the love that we have is a supernatural love. And it's not the love that the world knows. That's why Jesus says, love your enemies. Because we can.
Yeah.
Because it's God's love. And that's poured out. But what the Lord was speaking to me about was, now hope does not disappoint. And if you go to 1 Peter chapter 2, chapter 2, verse 7, or verse 6. Behold, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone, elect, precious, and he who believes on him will by no means be put to shame, or be confounded as one.
Right.
And it's same principle as hope.
Yeah.
Okay. Hope doesn't what was the word?
Was it hope? And are you talking about Romans 5?
5:5. Yeah, hope doesn't disappoint.
Yep.
Okay, so and that word shame is disappointment.
Yep.
Okay, and therefore to you who believe, he is precious. And then it goes on, verse 8, a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense. And just talking about offense, we get offended really easy because those who trust the Lord will not get offended, or they don't get disappointed, and they're not, what's the word here? They're not ashamed.
Yeah.
And that's what's been carrying us as a family, basically through since we were married, that our because we consider Jesus as very precious, he's worthy to be pursued, he's worthy to give our lives for, to consecrate our lives to, and to serve, and to abandon our lives for. He's precious. And because of that, then we can live without any expectations of what we should or need, because he is the one who died for us. And if he died for us, then he has every provision for us that we need. And so if something doesn't turn out the way we think it should, it's okay. We don't have to be offended by that. And we don't have to be disappointed by that. We don't have to go into depression about it. You know, so like what happened with me with getting sick with malaria the first month that I thought, hey God, I thought we had an arrangement here where I won't going to get sick. I can give testimony to the fact that you keep me and protect me from illness or whatever, so I can testify to your saving grace and mercy and power. But when I got sick, I had to work through that God is faithful, and what I don't have to be disappointed in the fact that he didn't live up to my expectations. Yeah. Because we tend to expect God to do stuff. When he doesn't come through, we get really disappointed with God.
Yes.
And
critical.
Yeah, critical. And there we need to just repent and say, I'm sorry, Lord, I doubted you.
I wrote this down, I don't know, about 2 weeks ago. You cannot be cynical and hopeful at the same time. They're two principles that fight against each other. Yeah. A cynical person is a passionate person who's not willing to be hurt again. Yeah. Hope in the midst of all of this. I think we're at a really interesting time. I mean, we're never not an interesting time in church. So I don't like saying that, but I think there is a lot of cynicism. Yes, rising up in Christians. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a lot of cynicism rising up around different systems, political systems. I mean, right now in the States, and I don't know when this is going to come out.
Even the religious system.
Yeah. And so how do you process cynicism versus wisdom? Am I being wise to question these things? Because I truly believe you can't have hope and be cynical at the same time.
Yeah. I think hope and faith has to do with God's word. What God says, I can trust. Yeah. And if God says that, then I can trust and rest on that. When God sent us to Spain is because God spoke to us, and it didn't matter what happened in Spain. God sent us, and because God sent us, we can rest in that. We were sent to an area of Spain that was full of witchcraft, depression, suicide, and so forth. And it was called the graveyard of missionaries. And so the only way we survived happily, not just surviving, but we lived there happily, was because of worship. Yeah. Hope, trust in the Lord, and with the expectation of him moving and doing what his will was. And so in the climate that we're in, how can I explain? You can look at all the negativity and look at it negatively and forget that God is sovereign and that he has his purposes that he's working out.
Let's define sovereign, because
Yes.
I think it's an important, you've brought it up a bunch. Can you define his sovereignty? Because for some people, his sovereignty means that we're robots,
Right.
right? If you take it to the extreme, other people's sovereignty is his grace. Like, can you define, when you say sovereignty, what are you saying?
Okay, for me,
Yep.
what I define sovereignty is that he has total authority and power to do what he wants. And he works with us in relationship. It's, and I get to know him, and I get to know his heart. And so there's a verse, I can't remember where it is. It says that those who love him, he meets the desires of our heart.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't remember the exact wording, but for me, that my desires become what his desires are.
Right.
And so what I expect is what I know that that's what he wants.
Right.
Okay, so his sovereignty over my life is him fulfilling his purposes for me with my permission.
Yeah.
Okay, for him to do that. And I submit to that because that's what I desire.
Right.
Okay, so I know people talk about predestination and they talk about God's will. And there's one kind of will, and then there's another kind of will. There's the very day by day purposes of God that he fills out. And then there's a wide will that you can live whatever you like within that.
Right.
And there's a general direction that God has taken you in. You can choose, I believe, how you want to live your life. And you can choose to be in every little detail, be led by him.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to serve him with a wide margin and do whatever you like. And you can choose to have a general appreciation of his will, and not be so desiring of every little detail of your life to be led by him consciously.
Yeah.
Debbie and I, love it when we can actually have his intervention in a very intentional way in our life every day.
Yeah.
Not just a general direction of his life, of his will over our lives. Because it just gives him glory.
Right.
It's, we can speak, look, God did this, God said this, he led us this, and it's him that's directing us. That's his sovereignty, like Psalm 2. It says he sits in the heavens and the nations are planning this and so forth, but he sits and laughs at them.
Yeah.
Okay, because he knows the destiny and the purposes that he has, and but within the parameters that he's established, he gives us free will to choose.
Yeah. When I look at predestined, at least in the scriptures, I see predestined unto a calling, unto a call. In fact, when I read it in context, I think you can isolate a lot of the scriptures and and remove free will. And listen, I don't want to get into a theological debate because I'm not right, and I'm not, and this has been debated for years. But when I personally read the scriptures, I see predestined unto a calling, not just predestined so that you are a robot.
Right.
I see predestined unto a calling.
Right.
And a few of those are very debatable, and as I grow, I dig into them deeper and struggle and work through that. But I love the overall statement that you're making is we are called by him. And what I hear you saying is you love the journey of him intervening in his sovereignty.
Yes.
But almost his active intervention is like, we're choosing to do this along the way. And as he comes, he is Lord over our situation, and we allow him to be.
Yes. So like, for instance, in the birth of our children, we gave him that right, or even though he had that right, we willingly submitted ourselves to that for him to, because in the Old Testament, There's so many examples of women who couldn't give birth.
Yeah.
But when they prayed and submitted themselves to the Lord and asked him to open, he opened it,
Yeah.
the womb. Okay, so we desired that.
Yeah.
That the Lord would give us children that he wanted, not
Yeah.
what we wanted,
Right.
but what he wanted.
Right.
And he would open Debbie's womb when he wanted. And so we knew every time that this is what God wanted. And he spoke to us that we would have 7 children.
So let's just tying back to the original when we said that you guys used contraceptives
Yes.
early on.
Yes.
And by the way, thank you for just being vulnerable, open about that. I love
problem.
it because Moosey and I did as well.
Yeah.
And I struggled through it early on in our marriage.
Right.
And do you look back and go, man, we were controlling God back then? We were controlling His will.
No.
How do you look at that journey?
I look at that journey as more relational
Yeah.
and wanting in a deeper way, more meaningful way, our relationship with the Lord, where because He is the Lord and He created us, then if that is so, then He has a purpose for us. And so we wanted to identify ourselves more and more with that and His sovereignty and willing to let Him be sovereign over our lives.
Yeah.
In what He gave, in the children He would give us, and the purposes that He want in every child that He would give us, His purposes to be fulfilled in their lives. And so when He said 7, okay, 7 will be, and so we've had 7 now for 12 years almost.
Yeah.
And we know we won't have any more, not because we're controlling anything,
Right.
but because that's it.
Yeah.
And but it gives great freedom in our relationship as well.
Yeah.
Just the rest in that you don't have to strive or be worried
Yeah.
or concerned whether we're going to have children when we shouldn't have children and so forth. But knowing that He is in control and that He is the one who will open Debbie's womb when He wants.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Fine.
Yeah. I love it. I think it's not just missions, but I see it a lot in our missionaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is something very special about living in another culture, serving, where you take on that mindset every day, where maybe when back here in the States that you talk about that tension, that ease of drifting back into just doing it in your own strength.
Yes.
How would you encourage people that are called to be, let's just say here in America or in their homes,
Mm-hmm.
are called to be in a job, right? Where they're struggling through, I feel like I'm not being used. I want to go on the missions field or I want to be used by God, but I'm here struggling, you know, how would you encourage them?
I would just say that wherever you are, that's where God wants you to be. And God wants to use them. He wants to be glorified through them. He wants to fill their life with His presence, fill them with joy and expectation. And it doesn't matter how mundane their job seems to be, whether it seems like it's just to provide for their own needs and so forth. It doesn't seem to meet any expectations as far as missions is concerned. But if that's where they are, then they really need to give that job to the Lord, their lives to the Lord, and begin to enjoy His presence, and that the job doesn't become just a source of income, but actually a place of worship, of intervention of God, and that God can use them there at work and be instrumental in Him. That's what I had to do in Australia when God took us back from Spain. I made my own company, carpentry company, and I gave my resume and everything to every real estate agent in the area. And not because I wanted income, but because God wanted to use me in the carpentry. So what would happen is the real estate agents then would notify me of a rental that needed fixing.
Yeah.
So they'd call me and I would go, and the family, the couple or whatever that's living there had been in a fight and they destroyed some of the property. Right. So I would go in and fix it. But it's not so much the money I would get, it's the ministry that happened there. And so I would minister to the couple or whoever was there and the need that they were in, point them to Jesus, and so forth. And that's why. But God provided through that.
Yeah.
And so my purpose wasn't so much a salary and an income, but it was an opportunity for ministry.
Yeah. So if I sat you across the table from a health and wealth preacher, right? Like a prosperity preacher, that God doesn't want you just living off like that supernatural provision.
Yeah.
That, he wants you to have a nice truck, and he wants you to have a good house, and he wants you to pay, first class tickets, right? To fly around because you're doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
What would you say to him? Or
I said, well, may the Lord bless you. Because that's his journey with him, with the Lord. That's his understanding. My journey is it's very personal.
Okay.
It's very real.
Okay. What if he was coming to you asking for advice?
Okay, that's very different.
Yeah.
Then. Yeah. I would ask him if, because you have Jesus, which says in Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these other things will be added to you. For me, that has nothing to do with prosperity.
Yeah.
That has to do with his provision to do what he wants us to do.
Yeah, that's the verse of, look at the birds of the air. They don't sow or reap or store away in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you eat, what you drink, what you wear your body. That's actually, and then he says, but seek first the kingdom of God.
Yes.
So that is after the provision is trusting in him.
Yes, yes. And so the whole motivation of the heart is first his lordship, his kingship over my life, and of serving him. Because seek first the kingdom of God, in other words, his lordship, his kingship over my life, and his righteousness, which is his government, the way he governs things, the way he does things in this earth. So I seek that first and let him lead me in whatever he wants me to do. So if he gives me a job, he might make me prosper, have a big house, cars, whatever, but my heart has to be pure.
Yeah.
I'm not there because of the wealth and the health. I'm there because God put me there, and I need to be faithful in it.
Yeah.
I need to be faithful in serving him in that job, which is causing me to be prosperous, and that's beautiful, and God has wanted it like that, and I bless him, for that. But his heart needs to be very careful that he isn't putting his heart in those things, but that he is actually seeking first, above all things, the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And it said, where Jesus says in Revelation chapter 2 or 3, you've lost your first love, sort of thing, and you need to get back to that.
Yeah.
And so we just need to guard our heart with that.
Can I kind of pick your brain a little bit more? There is a lot of political talk going on right now. One of the things when I was living in Paraguay and in Mozambique, I got to experience other nations and how they rule, how they govern. And then just even being out on the field, not listening to the news every day, I would come back and just get kind of caught up on what's going on. You've served in nations under a lot of different political styles.
Yes.
What is your take on politics and the church? And I'd just love to hear of serving under different regimes and leaders. Like, where do you stand? Like, what is a word of wisdom you would give to the church in America right now?
For me, it doesn't matter what kind of government. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It can be the most oppressive. It could be the most dictatorial. It could be the most democratic. It doesn't really matter because the church survives in whatever environment. And history and in Acts and so forth, the church actually grows when there is
Yes.
persecution. And so it's not so much what kind of government or political system that could be there. It's the church's perception of their purpose in life, with that they're there to love the Lord and love their neighbor. That's the essential thing, to love God with all their heart and to love their neighbor as they love themselves. And that operates in every kind of system.
Right.
It doesn't matter what kind of system. I know people want justice and righteousness, and they want a government that will actually implement righteousness and justice. Okay, very good. And we need to strive for that and so forth. But if the government isn't, that doesn't take away our responsibility of living a loving life and a righteous life in the place where we're living.
When you are in Mozambique or Spain, or do you engage in praying for the leaders there?
I do.
You do?
I do. And I'm very intentional in that. Like, for instance, I was on a plane from Maputo to Pemba. And on the plane, a man sat down next to me, very casual. Looked like a person with a low wage.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, we're talking. And so he asked me who I was and so on. And he asked me questions about what I do. I tell him I'm a missionary. I work with young people, work in trying to train or disciple young people in a righteous life, living a just life. You know, it's 2 or 3 hours that we're together.
Yeah.
Anyways, I talked to him a lot of things about righteousness and justice and truth. And then he says, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No, I have no idea who you are." And he said, "I'm the Chief Justice of the province of Cabo Delgado, the prosecuting justice."
Yeah.
And he pulls out his card and he gives it to me. And he said to me, "You're free to come into my office whenever you want to come."
Wow.
And so we established a relationship. He would come to our place for meals, and we would go to his place for meals. And about once a week, I'd go into his office, sit down with him and prophesy over him and pray for him. And I still talk with him. But when in Lixinga, for example, in Beira, I would go into these offices, and I would, before I do any paperwork, I would greet them all and say, "How are you? How's your family?" And they would always say, well, I've got this problem, I've got this problem. I said, "Can I pray for you?" And so I'd pray for them there before I did any business. And then they would ask, "Well, why'd you come here for?" And I said, "Well, this is what I came for." And then every time I go back, then we pick up on our relationship together. So I pray for them a lot. And it doesn't matter what kind of politician they are.
Right.
It doesn't matter at all. They all need God.
Yeah. I heard Heidi say once, I remember when I first moved out to Mozambique, she shared a story about meeting with the president. You know, it was 20 years ago.
Right.
19 years ago. And she was excited, you know, it was an honor. And then as the years have gone by, it's funny. She goes, "Yeah, I've seen so many come and go. It's just another one. My job is to pray for them."
Yes.
And that even that excitement, I think has left, not just in I'm not talking about Mozambique, I'm talking about just anywhere. She meets a lot of people. And it is funny when you pull back and you see the way he moves in other nations, and you just go, wow, like people come, people go, but the church, like what you were saying, that stays the same.
Yeah, even in the most oppressive government, the church is growing so fast.
Iran right now, from what I know, is still to this day is the fastest growing church in the world.
Yeah. And
it's the most oppressive.
Yes. And so the church here shouldn't, they really need to not worry so much about, they need to take responsibility in voting and so forth. Yes. But they need to be light and salt.
Yeah.
Everywhere they go.
I love it. It's simple. It's beautiful. I love everything you're saying, Peter. I agree. We're supposed to serve no matter what.
Yeah.
We're supposed to serve.
Yeah. And they need orientation.
Yeah.
A lot of people govern because that's the way they know,
Right.
the way they're governing. And from my experience in Mozambique, because they're more communist in their background,
Yep.
they love it. When you come with a word of the Lord that will edify them, encourage them, orientate them, give them wisdom and understanding in situations and so forth, and they need it.
Yeah.
They really need it.
Yeah.
They might put a show of arrogance or whatever in front of them, but they really need it. And they know that.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share? I know we've been going almost 2 hours.
Oh, no.
It's okay. I love it. Is there anything else that you felt like you wanted to share to people?
No, that's fine.
If Debbie was here, your wife, what would she want to share?
I don't know.
Okay.
There'd be so much that you want to share.
Hank is here, your son-in-law. Hank, come on in really quick. We don't need another mic. Just coming on quick. As we've been sharing, Hank, you guys can just go back and forth real quick. I'm sorry, James. As I've been sitting here, and this isn't like a Peter fest, but is there anything that you would want to share about Peter and the family and their walk with the Lord that he hasn't shared?
I think there's a lot, but I was just texting on the family WhatsApp group and sharing what you're talking about. And one of his daughters, my sister-in-law Miriam in Brazil, she was just writing on the group saying, it's so amazing to hear Daddy sharing things that he's been teaching us our whole lives. So I think that I think Peter's, everything is from what he lives and how he lives his life. And he just, his relationship with God. And that's the example he set for us, for his kids. And I had the privilege of marrying into the family. And it's every time we spend with him, we learn more about God, about trust.
Yeah.
But there are questions I asked my son here, that we were just discussing the other day.
Yeah.
So it's nice. I like the dynamic.
Yeah, you guys have just an incredible family. And you can see the fruit in your daughters, all of your children's life, but I see Antoinette almost daily. And she's trained Hank very well. So, yeah.
I'm sure his parents trained him very well.
They did. They're everybody's just, the whole family's incredible. Let me just ask you one more question, because man, the Lord's done something with this little podcast, and I started it years ago just to have good conversations with my friends, and that's still what it is today. And I've watched some of my friends grow in favor over the years, and when I bring them on, this thing goes out. So because of that, more and more people are listening to this. For me, I didn't do this because I'm a good host or I'm looking for a talk show. I want to see kids, adults, it doesn't matter, but I want to see them give their life away for the sake of the gospel. And can I just give you the last few minutes and just speak to them, if you don't mind? You've shared your life, you've shared your story, you've shared the ups and downs, right? But if you had let's say 5,000 people watch this. If you have 5,000 people sitting in front of you at a church, what would you tell them about missions, about giving their life away? And just spin that. Yeah.
I was meditating this morning about a passage that isn't popular, and it's Luke chapter 16, and it talks about a servant, and it talks about what master would recommend or reward a servant for being out in the fields all day in the hot sun, hoeing, plowing, then comes home in the evening and would not ask him to get his dinner prepared and serve his master and then let him rest. And Jesus says that that servant would rather say, we don't deserve anything from this master. We've only just done what we've been asked to do. And I know that we're living in a season where there's a lot of need for sons, or a concept of sons and daughters, and that we have a father. And that's very important. That's true. It's really important because many are coming through broken families, and they don't understand what it is to live in family and have a healthy parent, healthy parents, and live a healthy childhood and relationship. And so they need to come to a place of understanding what it is to be a son or a daughter, and who God is as a father. But at the same time, that can also come with expectations and, what do you call that word? Expectation. There's a word that you,
like an indebtedness,
entitlements as a son or as a daughter, as a Christian, and they forget that we're not deserving of anything, and that whatever I have, whatever position I have with God, it's only by grace and mercy. And what I really deserve is hell, separated from God.
Yeah.
I don't deserve this wonderful salvation that God has given me. And so the two things run parallel. Yeah, I don't consider myself as a slave.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself as a servant, but I do consider myself as a son, with a huge privilege of having God as my father, that I can serve him abandoned. Because whatever I have and whatever I go through, whatever situation I need to go through, it is much better than going to hell. And the joy of his presence is so beautiful. And I don't have to be afraid of giving up my life. I could have died in 2011, but God told me, no, it's not time for you to come to be with me. You still got to be a father, and you still have a lot of work to do. And I said, okay. So, which means that my life is in his hands. I don't have to be afraid of giving my life, because he wants me alive, and he wants me to serve him with my life. And being a good father, he gives me everything that I need, his fellowship, his love, his mercy, his grace. And I'm able to give that as well. And because the fountain of grace is so big, I can be gracious with others too, and forgive and be merciful and loving others as well. And so God isn't a debtor.
Right.
There's no way that I can outpay anything. And so I'm allowed, and God gives me the privilege of giving my life away. And my recompense isn't here. And I don't need to get anything back, because I don't deserve the joy and the privilege of serving him. And so people don't need to be afraid of giving their lives, because God is quite able to care for them and love them and use them. What Mel shared the other day about...
Mel Tari.
Yes. Mel Tari shared the other day was spot on, that God makes us to be fishers of men. We don't have to be afraid of our limitations, our lack of training, whatever, We just need to make ourselves available to the Lord, and he's able to use us the way he wants.
Wow. Man, thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
It's a joy having you on. There's one other thing I wanted to ask you. That I just remembered what it was. I got caught up in what you were saying. Currently, you do a lot of work. You do a lot of different things. But one of the things that you do constantly is go and spend time with our pastors in Mozambique. There are a lot of people watching that have been a part of Iris for years. They've heard about the revival. Could you just as we're getting ready to close, can you just share some of what you're seeing amongst the pastors in Mozambique, some of the testimonies of what you're seeing on the ground? We know there's war. We've lost a lot of pastors. We've lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
But you are firsthand spending time out visiting and meeting with pastors. Can you share some of what you're seeing?
Yeah. Up in the north, in the Cabo Delgado area, God is doing amazing things in the middle of the suffering that's happening. The maturity that's coming to the pastors through all of what's going on because of the absence of missionaries there. They've had to be pulled back. The actual Mozambican pastors now need to rise up, and they're rising up and taking responsibility for the work there. And I've been there a couple of times now, and it's been amazing. What I'm seeing and the courage that they have, the love that they have for one another, and the bond that's been formed between them. That's been amazing. In the other parts of Mozambique, that sort of maturity is a lot slower. They're still growing in the area of generosity and willing to trust God and not the ministry.
Yeah.
But that's amazing too. They're growing in that. I was really happy with one pastor. We traveled through Zambezia for 5 days together. And so we experienced different situations, different churches together. And he was shocked because in one place we had a meal together with all the believers, and they prepared the meal, and the leaders were served first, the food, and then the men, and then the women folk and the children, if there was anything left over.
Yeah.
And he was shocked. He immediately brought the church together afterwards and began to teach them that they cannot continue doing that. The leaders first serve the others.
Right.
Then they can eat themselves. He said, and so he began to teach them. That's what he does in the church, local church where he is. He said when they have a gathering together, the leaders are the ones that will serve.
Yeah.
And they will be the last to eat. But they need to be generous and to care for the others first.
Yeah.
And then they will eat if there's anything left over.
Wow.
That was an amazing time.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Wow. Be careful how you answer this next question. Okay. There are a bunch of people watching. I know some are going to want to reach out, ask questions. Is that something, if somebody wants to get in contact with you, how can they do that? If you want them to.
The better thing would be through WhatsApp.
Okay. I would be very careful about a number. Do you have an email?
I have an email.
Okay.
Okay. It's P.E. Wilcox.
P.E. Wilcox.
At gmail.com.
At gmail.com. Okay. And don't.
Sorry, P.E.D.L.
P.E.D.L.
P.E.D.L. Wilcox.
Okay. And we can stick that down in the little description. Okay. And just don't be a weirdo. Reach out if it's something important. Don't share a dream of your dream of the end of days with him. But if something's moved on your heart, you want to contact.
Sure.
You and I are doing something very similar, which we're in school together.
Right.
Yeah. And it blew my mind when you reached out and said you wanted to start working towards your master's.
Yes.
Because I think you should be a professor in the school more than anything else. I think you have more to teach than you actually have to learn. And as I'm sitting here, I would like to ask. Peter probably doesn't like the fact that I'm going to do this, but I would like to ask if there's anyone out there that would like to sow into Peter's education, do that, and help him reach this goal. I know that if Debbie was here, she would be upset at me, but she's not. And so I would like, this is something that I think is really, really good soil, because I want to read your books. I want to read your papers. And I think the world will be better with your input into the gospel and its teaching.
Thank you.
So if there's anyone out there that wants to sow into his education or their family or whatever, please, you can find the information. You can email him directly. This doesn't even have to be through Iris, but I'm sure that do you know where they can support? I'm not even going to ask Peter. Is it on the website? Go to irisglobal.org. We'll put a link if you'd like to sow in to this incredible family and the incredible work that they're doing. I'm not allowed to ask for Iris, but I'm not. I'm asking for the Wilcox family. And honestly, like, we do this for free, and we love you guys, and it's good to sow. And none of this goes to me. None of this goes personally to Iris. This will go to this incredible family. And man, can I actually just say something? You guys are insane. All of you who are watching this, like, when we had Liz on here, and I'm trying to get an update on this. You guys got a grain mill for Liz. We had an outpouring of like farmers wanting to send tractor tires and gear. Like, you guys are incredible. And I don't say this enough, but I read almost every single comment, and you guys are coming on a journey with us as we're pursuing God together. And it's because especially in this last year, we've gotten to have so much fun with you guys watching, bringing on these guests. I've got to see what you guys want to hear. And it's not just the big names. It's not just the big ministers. In fact, we get more response when I bring in some of our Iris missionaries. And so for you guys watching, this is an opportunity, and you know how rare this is that I get to ask, but there are a few people that I bring on here that I know that they're the best soil out there. So take some time and think about it. But what I would ask is, if you want to send a gift, go for it. But man, the long-term support, the getting them connected with your church is so beautiful. They will handle it better than I would if you were sowing into me personally. And I mean that, and I know that. These guys are just incredible. So I wish we had your whole family here to hop on. But I know that everything you sow in is going to go to good soil. So let's partner with these guys, okay? And can you also do me a favor as I'm talking to you guys? Can you leave a comment? You know, I don't like the way that YouTube works and the algorithms, and I don't fully get it. But I do know that if you write a comment, right, tell us something that you learned from this, it helps it grow in the algorithm. And this is an episode, as you all know, that I think all of you that many people need to watch. So hit like, hit subscribe, stick a comment down there. Tell us something that you walked away from this conversation with, and tell us if you want me to have Peter back. I already know the answer, but put something down there. It'll help get this out. Peter, can you pray for us?
I can pray.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Father, I want to thank you, Lord, for the privilege of knowing you. Thank you. It's through your Son, Jesus Christ, that we can come to you, for through the death and resurrection of his life, Lord, that we can come with confidence into your presence. And we are so grateful for that. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of just sharing a little bit of what you do in our lives, and the privilege it is to walk with you, Lord. Thank you, Father, for the hundreds, thousands, millions of people on this earth that are loving you, serving you, blessing others, and just being light and salt in the places where they are. I ask that your grace would be upon them and that you would bless them with your presence, just as Moses said he didn't want to go anywhere unless you went with him. And so, Lord, we ask that your presence would just just be with every person that loves you, Lord, and that they would know that you are there with them, and that they would be able to live each day with expectation of your intervention and your love for them, and that you would give them the grace to go through the things that they need to go through. We ask for your wisdom and understanding, that they might be able to resolve what they need to resolve, Lord, but that your joy would just be in their hearts, Lord, as they go through the difficulties they go through. Thank you, Lord, for the opportunities they have to serve, the opportunities they have to give, the opportunities they have to minister to people and to encourage people. Just a kind word, act of love is so, so important. And we thank you for that opportunity you give us, Lord. We bless you, Lord, and praise you. I thank you for Will. Lord, thank you for his love for you and his love for your people and the world. And we ask that your grace would be upon him and that you would give him wisdom and understanding in all that he has to do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Peter, thank you, sir.
Pleasure.
Did you have fun?
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah?
Yeah, I did.
Will you do it again?
I would do it again.
Yes. Hank, did you have fun?
I did. Loved listening.
We'll see you guys on the next green room. Bless you guys. Isn't it fun?